Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this Monday's Wealth Creation Show. Today, Jim, we are going to be covering continuous improvement and how it will set you free. Now, this is a really important. We just spoke off camera here that this relates to obviously we do refer a lot to property investment and letting and being an investor and things, but the wealth creation show is more than that. It's more about your self development and your own life and your personal life, and it obviously spills through into how you are in a professional aspect and things as well. And we're really going to get down to the nitty gritty here and look at the continuous improvement of yourself has a benefit to your business and your professional life and just generally all round, Jim, is what we were just saying there off camera.
I think it's ultimately down to everything you do in your
Yeah.
everyday life. It's a huge difference. So Kaizen itself is
Yeah.
something I've practiced all my life from the very
Mhm.
beginning, ever since I understood what Kaizen actually meant and the practice of continuous improvement throughout your life. So Kaizen was developed and improved the Japanese manufacturing process. So it actually came about because what happened was when Americans basically decimated the whole of Japan,
Mhm.
there was nothing left of it. So what happened was, after the war was over, Japan wasn't allowed to get involved in weapons, production or anything like
Yeah.
that. But they had to rebuild the economy. So actually, the Americans actually went back into Japan and helped them build their economy,
Rebuild it.
and
Yeah.
ultimately helped them rebuild their manufacturing system. And Kaizen was the system that developed. It was actually, I'm sure it's the person that actually helped them from America. So this is where Kaizen came about from. It was developed and to improve the Japanese manufacturing process through lowering costs and improving quality right throughout it. So, in a roundabout way, and I wouldn't say blessing in disguise was the greatest thing to say about what happened to the Japanese at that time with Hiroshima and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it allowed them to start from the very beginning again with the help and support of the Americans and actually build what was a powerful powerhouse. Basically, their
Build
economy
from a bit of a
became,
clean slate, I
well, look
suppose.
at their economy became one of the most important in the
Yeah.
world. And only recently they've taken a dip because they've not realized the implications of the longevity of life
Yeah.
and the fact that they're no longer producing enough children in order to have a sustainable workforce. So this is coming back to bite them. But Kaizen was developed for this reason. All goes back to this efficiency as well. This is
Mhm.
what's happening now. Kaizen is actually what's going to be happening with AI. This is why AI has been brought about as well, because we're about to go through this huge generational loss of the baby boomers, and who I am is Generation Z, I think it is.
Mhm.
We're classed
Yeah.
as
Generation's
potentially
Edge. Yeah.
after came after the baby boomers. And we'll disappear, and that's a huge population actually disappearing off the face of the earth. But there's actually no one to replace us in those jobs, no skills. There's not enough people to replace. So Kaizen and AI has been specifically developed for this reason, to be able to make things simpler, make things more efficient, and make things easier. And it's now used by companies all over the world,
Yeah.
at an individual level, at team level, and organizational level. And what I mean by individual, this is how I used it. And this
That
is
was my
why
next question, Jim. So I know that you, and obviously through conversation, this is something that it's a philosophy that you adopted and used for the last 30, 35 years even.
oh
So
my God, it's
okay,
like I get
yeah,
completely obsessive about this. To the point that, I know it's really, this is nth degree stuff, but you could see how this compounds up in terms of your time. If I decide to go to the toilet one more time a day, and I know it sounds daft, but how long does that typically take? Now, it could be a hit or run, or it could be a wee bit longer. So let's say it takes 10 minutes every single day extra, and you've got 7 days a week, and then you've got 52 weeks in the year. You're effectively spending another 3,640 minutes. Divide that by the 60. That's effectively 60 hours extra a year just because you went to the toilet one more time every day.
yeah,
Or the classic example as well is if you flushed the toilet, and I know that sounds daft as well, but if you flushed the toilet in a company and did it every single day, and it costs you, because it costs you like something like 40 pence a unit, 40 pence a litre to do that in terms of sewage costs, in terms of water costs, because that's what the rates will charge you extra for that if you're metered, then that compounds up as well. So when you look at 0.4 pence times extra days times 7 times 365, then times the number of litres, because it's like something like what, 5-6 litres times 6, you're using 6,132 litres. Never mind the environment. Every year you're using 6,132. Now that's a lot. So that's effectively another 61 quid a year. So look at, so you've got, if you then take that to everything you do, think about the efficiency and the time savings you can actually do over the years in terms of making things more efficient. And this really does come down to things like, I know it sounds bizarre, but the reason that you're held back and you've not got enough time to do anything is because you're inefficient in terms of what you're doing sometimes. And I do mean things like, I've got to sit down and listen to something or watch something on the television. Well, no, you can't. You could listen to the podcast while you're actually doing something else that you're meant to be doing. And I could be doing something else at the same time as that. So if you can combine 3 things at once, then you're no longer taking twice as much or 3 times as much effort to do the same thing. It's actually just you're doing it one time and you're using that specific time slot in your life in order to do 3 things at once. This then comes into the bigger scale where you get people that you delegate tasks to, and then you start to multiply your time, but you get them to work efficiently in terms of what they're doing by training them correctly, and therefore you multiply the number of hours you've got. This is why people like myself, it's like effectively, I'm working 1,000 hours a week because you're doing some of the work I used to do. Andrea's doing some of the work I used to do. Perry's doing some of the work I used to do. Susan's doing some of the work I used to do. Erin's doing some of the work I used to do. Anne-Marie is doing some of the work I used to do. You know, property management's doing some of the work I used to do. So, well, I would say it's probably more than 1,000 hours a week, actually. So the time that I had, I've now multiplied my efforts. And by multiplying your efforts, then you multiply your results. And that is compounding at the end. And that could be, that leads you to extreme wealth.
Yeah. And I think people might think there's these menial things like the extra flush of a toilet or the extra 5-10 minutes you spend doing something, but they do all compound up. It can multiply into quite a lot.
Yeah, this is why people laugh when you get Martin Lewis, for example, coming on and saying, oh, you could save £60 a year on your gas bill. And people go, you know, I could spend £60 in a night, so I'm not really particularly bothered. And it doesn't float their boat that much. But then when you look at things like when you come into your habits, then you're probably losing £100, £200 a month on eating inefficiently. In other words, you're buying crap, you're getting takeouts and takeaways. You're probably putting the heating on a lot more than what you would need to because you just feel like it and you can't be bored switching off because it goes automatically off on a timer and you forget to switch off. So therefore that it costs you more money as well. So when you then take that to the nth degree as well and look at Kaizen and think of how you can make that more efficient and how you could get things to be automated to switch stuff off for you. This is why in all the offices, I've got that button that you press and it says 1 hour for the heating. Because you don't then need to think about it. The heating switches automatically off after the 1 hour. Whereas what happened before, when I didn't have that, somebody would go and put the heating on and it would be on all day. And then we'd go away on a Friday night and I'd find out it's been on all weekend and nobody's been in the office.
Yeah, that's happened.
And if that happens 52 weeks of the year, that's effectively another, when you think about it, it's like 2 days out of 7 divided by 7. That's another 28% cost on your bill. Yeah. So if your bill is, for example, £2,000 a year, that's another 560 quid just because you couldn't be bothered switching it off. So get a proper heating, you know, a controller to actually be able to switch it off easily and automatically for you, so you don't need to do it. I've got it in my house as well. I could override, put the heating on at any time you want, but I've still got that 1 hour button on my clock. Just press the 1 hour to heat the house up. Job done. Switches off automatically.
That is quite a good thing because unless it's really cold outside, you didn't really need much more than an hour to take the chill off a property or premises, whatever. So so the Kaizen philosophy is quite a good. I've looked into it obviously since we spoke last week about it. I've looked into it a lot more obviously because it was something that I was completely familiar with. But
Yeah.
as you say, Jim, it's something you've practiced for nearly 35 years, and it's helped you get to where you are now. And I think it is about, and we're going to talk about mindset today as well, which is a big part of that, and getting yourself in the correct mindset to be able to then let the philosophy act correctly and the way you want it to. Because if you've not got the right mindset, then it's not going to really work, is it?
Yeah, I mean, it can be quite daunting to do this, or quite overwhelming. But this is then this goes back to habit stacking.
Yeah.
This is where it leads. So this is all about habit stacking as well. So if you start to habit stack, in other words, you know, if you do one thing, you do another thing at the same time, or back to back at the back of it, and make it so efficient that it's all in line with the other. It's kind of like if you look at a kitchen, for example, and you look at the layout of a kitchen. Is it easy to get access? Well, I mean, what's the first thing you go for when the kitchen, when you're preparing food? You go to the fridge freezer.
The fridge, yeah.
Okay, and you get something at the fridge freezer, and then you go and put it on the worktop.
Yeah.
So where is the fridge freezer in relation to the worktop? And then when you're on the worktop and you're preparing it, where does it go next? It goes to the cooker. So where is the cooker in relation to that? Now, you could actually sit and go, oh, is it really worth that effort? But could you imagine if the fridge freezer's in a bigger kitchen, it's across the other side of the kitchen, or it's maybe in another room? Some people have their freezer in another room. And the inefficiency of having to travel to that maybe 3 times a day, every single day. Look at the amount of time it's getting wasted. And the fact is, your preparation might be a completely different place from where your cooker is. So it's not ergonomically laid out. Therefore, your kitchen could be really inefficient for you. And actually, people be crossing over each other. Now, if you've watched, for example, the
MasterChef or
no,
Gordon Ramsay's.
If you've watched the one about Ray Kroc, you know the film about Ray Kroc. I can't remember what it's called, and about how Ray Kroc built McDonald's.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, the McDonald's system is Kaizen. So that's how they did it. So they actually built the restaurant, the actual kitchen, in a park, in a play park. They even put a mock of a kitchen in a play park, and they got everyone actually doing all their different tasks of burger bun, you know, all the rest of it, passing it on to each other. And they worked out the perfect ergonomically laid out kitchen in order to make it so efficient that all that, every single time you produce a burger, it's right down to the nth degree in efficiency. There is no margin of error as one person crosses the other and makes it seamless in that task. That's Kaizen.
Right.
That's what they do at McDonald's. That's how they get it to perfection in terms of the time. Because could you imagine if they lose 5 minutes on every single burger?
Yeah, that's going to compound up to a lot.
Think about that. 5 minutes. Say they just produced 1 million burgers. You're probably just producing 1 million burgers a day back, actually. So you're producing 1 million burgers, and you're talking about times the 5. So you're 5 million minutes and divide it by 60. Literally, if it's 1 million burgers every day they do, they're literally losing 83,333 hours.
That's quite astonishing when you think about it. When you think
multiply that by 10, which is just an hourly rate, I said, that means they're losing in cost for labour £833,000 a day in labour costs. Multiply that by the year, that means they're losing 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 304 million a year in labour costs. 304 million a year in efficiency they're losing. Inefficient in terms of cost it costs to do it. That, for me, is the extreme example of exactly why Kaizen is so important in terms of efficiency. So you can get really nth degree geeky and talk about the flushes of a loo every single day in the layout of a kitchen. But if you extrapolate that and put that onto a big corporation and how they use it in manufacturing process, it costs you a fortune in efficiency. So there's no surprise in my career, I used to be called the profit engineer. And yet I was an accountant. Because I used to look at manufacturing systems, manufacturing processes, and actually go, actually, that's really inefficient in the way you do that. You should actually do it this way, that way, and that way, and this way. and you'd probably be a lot better. Or you should maybe get this bit of kit, capital expenditure. You should maybe spend, 100,000 or 50,000 on this, and that would make that faster, and the payback would be quicker, and therefore your payback would maybe be 6 months instead of 2 years. Never mind 2 years, because 2 years was the standard for payback in manufacturing for a bit of equipment you usually bought. And paybacks, so you understand what payback is. Payback means the return you'll get from actually buying that bit of kit. So if the bit of kit's £50,000 and it's going to help you save money, and it saves money, £50,000 over 2 years, then the payback is 2 years. If it saves over 6 months, the payback is 6 months. So that's what that actually means. So that's the type of things I used to help in industry, and that's what I used to get involved in, was the calculations and efficiencies and payback for capital expenditure project and systems and processes in manufacturing, in order how with engineers, because it wasn't me. I never went down and says, oh, you do this and do that. The engineers would come to me with a dilemma and say, this is what I'm trying to achieve. This is what I think will make the line more efficient, and I'm looking for this bit of kit to do it. And I had to then justify in a monetary aspect how that would come out as so efficient in order for them to be able to justify the buying of the kit. Because it had to be approved by the board. And when you get to above a certain level of spend, the board had to approve it at their meetings. Therefore, I had to work hand in hand with the engineers in order to justify the purchase of that kit. There was never a time where any kit was ever not bought when it came through me. Because every single time, no matter what you were buying, I was able to justify how that would make it so efficient. And that's how I started out. And so that was later on in my career, but I started out in my career when I started as a trainee accountant. When I first came into my first job in Balfour's and leaving, I took a 5-day week. I worked. So in other words, what the tasks were in a 5-day week, and I made it efficient enough to actually do a 2.5-day week with that same workload. And just by applying this Kaizen, just by making things more efficient, just by getting all the right things in, and everybody thinks, oh, anybody could do that. Well, I'm afraid they can't. They just don't see it. They don't understand it. And that's why I'm paid so much in terms of what I was doing in industry and what I do now. And that's why people get me to add the value to what they're doing in terms of anything that applies. And this is why I keep going back to saying that everybody thinks, oh, you're the guy that sells the houses. Well, I'm not the guy that sells the houses. The house sells, but I'm the guy that gets someone from A to B in the most efficient way possible.
That's the process.
And maximizes the return. And maximizes the return in terms of how I'm doing it. And that's why I get paid handsomely for it.
Yeah.
That's
and I think
what an agent does.
Like you've just demonstrated there, Jim, as well, it's the process in anything. It's the process and having the correct process in place. But to know the right process and to follow philosophies like Kaizen and things, it's a skill in itself to be able to master that and have it honed right down to, like you say, Jim, to where you've had it in industry and how you apply it now into what you do as well.
It can get you into trouble as well, especially if you're at security in the airport. you start to question your systems, because honestly, I am that disciplined, and because do you know how you get these? Well, look at Rain Man. You know when he throws all the straws on the ground and he goes 5,365. Well, I could literally look at a system and immediately go, I know what that needs to be done. 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 This needs to be done. And literally, I'm a bit like that when I get to an airport and security. And I have been picked up on it a couple of times about why are you asking these questions? Because I look at somebody's processes and I go, why are you doing it like that? And they're doing it like this. And you should be doing it like that. And you should be doing it like this. And it would be a lot more quicker and a lot more efficient. And it'll still get the same result you're wanting. And oh, by the way, did you realize that process actually still allows people to abuse that system? And you'll never know if that person's the right person or not walking through that security process, that security.
Yeah.
That's why I managed to get on a lot of flights with someone else's boarding pass. Well, another person.
Which is crazy when you think about it.
And it was actually one of the extreme examples of that was the fact that I managed to go on with a boarding pass with someone else's name on it on the day that one of the terrorist threats actually happened, that they said, we're going to be tightening down on the aeroplanes today. We're going to be stopping people. We're going to be checking everything. And it's like, well, I walked easily onto a BA flight and it didn't have my name on it at all. And the person looked at my passport and looked at the boarding pass with two different names and went, yeah, okay, on you go.
And didn't really check it.
Yeah. And then another classic example is when you're on a plane, it's like, okay, the cabin's supposed to be locked when you're flying, so nobody can get access into it. Right, okay. But when you're on the plane, everybody boards and they leave the cabin open. So,
noticed that.
Aye. So what's all that about? That thing in the sky bears no relation to what's happening on the ground, because it could be easily done as well. So, so all these mechanisms and things that you think you're safe about, and all these legislative practices everybody puts in, it's just a pile of shite, for want of a better phrase. It's just, you maybe think you're safe, and you maybe think everybody's following the rules and it's going to catch all these criminals. I'm not talking about the people in the sky and stuff like that. I'm talking about the people that are dodging tax, the people that are money laundering and all the rest of it. These people don't follow these systems. They don't follow anything like that at all. It's only us that do that, and we're not doing anything like that in the first place.
Yeah.
The people that actually don't do money, the people that don't money launder, don't hand their passports over and their ID and proof of address. They just have a system where they actually just send it another way. And it never is never caught and never identified. You can see that in the news where HSBC has been nailed to the wall and stuff like that, for laundering money through their Swiss bank accounts and all over the place. I'm not singling out anybody in particular, but that's effectively, these systems do not work. But this comes back to continuous improvement in terms of how systems work. And I was going a wee bit off the track there, but when we bring it back to that, it's like when you put a system in place, you need to make sure it works efficiently, or you need to make sure you put it in place and then get it to work efficiently. But then you need to close all the loops so there's no abuse. This comes back to internal control.
Yeah.
Now, internal control, I excelled in. I actually got a distinction in auditing internal control. When I was at my professional exams, I actually was one of the top. I think it was 100% I got in the exam, because internal control is adamant for everything, because it doesn't allow people to abuse the system. It doesn't allow people to circumvent the system, and that's what comes back to Kaizen. You could put all the efficiencies in possible, but if it allows people to go outside of the system and do their own thing without you actually knowing what's going on, then it's no worth it. Because that's how people come up and go, how on earth did I manage to get defrauded by 700,000 over the last 5 years by an employee? Oh, I know why you did. Because you thought you'd make it right so efficient and you would actually cut out all the things that you should be doing, but you didn't realize with cutting out what you were doing, you weren't cutting into the fat, you were cutting into the bone.
Yeah, and you were taking away that measure, which basically like an auditing version of the step. People are trying to maybe streamline things, but taking out a process that really is required.
Why do you think so many companies get caught where, later on, and they realise their accounts have got a big black hole in them? Tesco's. Oh, mind that these accounts we said were super great last year. Well, we actually realised we've got a black hole of 250 million. We didn't make 250 million that we were supposed to have made last year. And then it's like Tesco's is on their knees.
Yeah.
And yet you think to yourself, the auditors should have picked that up. But the auditors are just people at the university. They've not even got any professional, that's what happens. They just send people, graduates out of university, who have no idea what they're doing because they've done a degree in archaeology, and they decided to get into auditing because that's where they get lumped when they join these places. And then they send them off to go and just fill out this sheet and tick this box. And people like me in industry easily just manipulate this and go, see that stock over there, that's no obsolete, that's actually part of the accounts. And then lo and behold, you've got your inflated profit.
Yeah. So I think if it's left, if there's margin for error left, or for people to be able to manipulate it, then they will find a way. So you need to really be quite strict with your process. Yeah.
So this is why you can have a Kaizen philosophy, and you can have everything so efficient. But you can make it efficient, but you need to make sure you've got proper internal control.
Yeah.
And that's where things like technology, innovation will continue to progress much more quickly than ever before. Why do you think they're talking about AI just now and thinking the biggest threat to us right now is AI, and the fact that people will develop AI which will actually gather a data, and they'll end up, criminals will use AI to actually steal more information. Because AI, you won't notice you're actually, I mean, this could be AI for all you know. Because I've seen people actually recreated like this right now in an AI format, and it actually looks like the right person. It's back to the Max Headroom. If you remember Max Headroom, where he came up, Max Headroom was an AI, artificially. It's supposed to be an artificially computer generated thing back in the 80s. Max Headroom. You'll know. That's why you probably don't remember it.
No.
But the older generation will remember Max Headroom, and that was kind of the advent into AI. It wasn't really. It was the guy, I think, of Crichton of Red Dwarf that actually played Max Headroom years ago, in the early days. And it was just like a computer-generated AI supposed to be. And that's what will happen in the future. This is why the biggest threat nowadays is, and the biggest excitement and adventure is AI and what it can do for
AI.
us.
I mean, AI is an amazing thing, but as we touched on last week, and it's a scary prospect as well to where it could be, and if it's not monitored correctly and looked after, then
so this comes back to saying this, adopting this continuous mindset of improvement will put your business, so whatever you're doing now, whatever it is, it doesn't matter what it is, it doesn't need the proper investment, it could be any business, on a more successful trajectory. What's probably the next question? How did I apply this? What did I do? What is continuous improvement?
I mean, we need to really look at what is continuous improvement. People are like, well, what do I do to continually improve? And I mean,
I'll tell you how I apply continuous improvement then.
Okay.
So continuous improvement for me is things like, I'll just quickly jump off camera and I'll come back in 2 seconds. 1, 2, there you go, I'm back. As if by magic. That's continuous improvement for me.
Right.
So for most people, you'll not see it because they'll be back to back on Instagram and TikTok. This is the winner effect. This is a book that I've just ordered, Ian Robertson. Now, the science of success and how to use it. So I was listening to a podcast and they goes, okay, that's probably one of the ones. And it's a person that's been really successful in what they're doing. So I immediately ordered the book because I think I really want to read that because that guy's read it. He's been so successful at what he does. So I'm going to read this as well and see if I can glean some information out of that. Now, this is why I got that. Now, I've been doing this for 35 years. So again, 35 years, continuous improvement, Kaizen, this is what this is all about. So this comes back to reading. It also comes back to functions. So Tony Robbins, Unleash the Power Within. Kevin Green, Secret Millionaire, 2010. Progressive Property, when Rob and Mark started out in 2008. I was one of their first people. Rob Moore. Rob Moore, Mark Homer. So when Rob and Mark first started out, I teamed up with them in Glasgow, and we sat down, had a wee chat and all the rest of it. But it was learning some of the things that they were doing. So that was one of the ones that I gleaned off as well. Richard Branson, there's no surprise I've read loads of his books. There's, another one just now. Again, another one.
Is this the updated version of The Virgin Way?
Yeah, so Finding My Virginity, classic example. Mm-hmm. So there's another one. And folk are going, God, I'll never get through all these books. And it's like, but the reality is, you will get through all these books. It's just you've got to pick the right books. Here's another one. There's Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
The Intelligent Investor. Now, what happened was Benjamin Graham, this was the first book that Warren Buffett ever read. And Warren Buffett specialized in looking at company reports every single time. And that's all he does. He looks at company reports every single time and he understands the dynamics. Now, I look at company reports most of the time because it just floats my boat. As soon as one of these gurus, in other words, the fake gurus get out there and say, oh, this is what you do and this is how you do it, and you'll build a big portfolio and all the rest of it, I immediately go straight to their limited company. I look at their, privacy notice on their website. I find out who their limited company is. I look it up and go, you've not got a pot to piss in. It's like, how could you teach me how to make an absolute fortune if you've not made a fortune yourself? That just doesn't make sense. That's like a broke person, somebody that's poor, trying to teach somebody to be rich. If you were rich, if you were rich, I would listen to you. But if you're poor, what am I going to learn from you? How to be exactly like you, poor. So this is the key here. So Benjamin Graham wrote this, and then Warren Buffett took this book where he first read, and he rewrote it. So that's what he did. He rewrote it. Warren Buffett rewrote this. So that is another book I'm going to get through. Now, the one I'm finishing off on now is Buy, Refurbish, Resell, Redevelop. And the BRR, Recycle,
the BRR one,
strategy, through Kevin Wright. I know Kevin very well. We went up at Andy Harrington's public speaker training, and a really solid guy. Knows his stuff when it comes to bridging loans. Hence the reason why I've talked about it recently quite a bit. But this guy's an expert in bridging loans. Now, Kevin doesn't have a huge portfolio, but I tell you what, he can teach you a lot about getting bridging loans and how to finance property. And that is an expertise that I do not have. Hence the reason why I'm listening to him, because that's an expertise I will acquire. Definitely. So it's these continuous improvements that you do. And people say, God, I didn't think you've got enough hours in the day for that. Well, I'll be honest. What are you doing when you're sitting on the toilet? Think about it. You're playing on your phone. Get off your phone and read a book. It'll actually set you free. Even if it's just 15, 20 minutes. Get off your phone. There's unproductive time that you could be reading a book. Again, we're coming down to an extreme example, isn't it? And everybody will laugh at that. But literally, for some people, it's 15 minutes. So 15 minutes every single day, reading a book, compounded. So 15 times 7 times 52 is 5,460 minutes a year. Divided by 60 is 91 hours.
That's a lot. That just shows you how it could compound up.
Module, Richard, a ScotVec module, which is almost an O grade in a particular discipline, is 40 hours of continuous learning. And you're doing it while sitting on the toilet, 2 modules. Yeah. You're not doing anything else. Well, you are, but we'll not talk about that.
I was, yeah, an O grade for anybody that's an O grade.
2 modules in a year. If you do that over a 10-year period, you've basically got a degree. That's crazy. I learned a degree sitting on the toilet.
Yeah, it's amazing to think of that. But that's how you could say, like the Kaizen philosophy. If you adapt that into your processes, whatever you're doing, how it could compound up to benefit you, in a lot of different aspects of your life. Gary says there, good book, The Intelligent Investor. He says it's very dry but very informative.
Yeah, it's going to be dry because it's going to be very analytical. It's Warren Buffett's mindset, and for me, that will float my boat, because I'm extremely analytical. So I'll get that straight away, and I'll be very analytical about it as well. And it'll take me a long time to get through that, but I've got time. I'm planning on living till 110. So effectively, I'm only halfway there. I've got another 54 years to go. So I've got time. Time's on my side. Yeah. I've not got any plans to leave this earth anytime soon. And I don't know of any plans where I'm going to leave this earth anytime soon. Whereas everybody else has this mindset about, I've got to retire at 65. Why? To do what? Just retire now and do what you're meant to be doing with the unproductive time you've got and invest what your time is. Your time is the most important commodity in the world. You're never going to lie on your deathbed and think about your things, your material possessions, your Ferrari and your Porsche and all the rest of it. You're never going to think about how much money you've got. You're never going to think about how much tax you've paid, but actually I had an auntie that did that and made sure she had 10,000 in her bank account left, and before she popped her clogs and they pressed the heroin into her, you know how they do the morphine just to get rid of them, and pop them off. She turned around to her son and went, for God's sake, make sure I didn't pay any more tax. Right, I'm ready, doctor. That was just typical of her. And I've got great admiration for that. That's a great way to go. That's a great story.
Yeah.
But you're never going to sit in your deathbed and think about all the things you had. You're going to think about the experiences you had. You're also going to think about the time you've probably wasted that you could have spent doing something more productive.
Yeah, because if you could master that while you're still alive and make your time here more efficient, so that you could spend the extra time that you've saved doing the things, whether it be with family or traveling or things that you want to do, you're going to be at that position when you're on your
Absolutely
deathbed and think, I made the most of my time, and feel there must be some element, a big element of comfort in that you've made the time that you've got more efficient and used it for what you want to do, rather than, oh, I spent so many years slaving away doing this and I shouldn't have. And do you know what I mean? So, and it's like you say as well, the cost of regret is obviously, I mean, it's immeasurable, really, if you're going to be lying on your deathbed regretting things.
Wait till you get. Wait till you listen. If you're not prepared to pay the price right now, wait till you get the bill from regret.
Regret, that's it. Yeah. Yeah,
Because
and I really like that.
I tell you what, the bill from regret is going to be horrendous.
Yeah.
And that's when you're going to turn round to all your friends round about you and go, I wish I had. And if you ever feel like that about something that you're about to do, and you're going to be like that, you may as well get on and do it. Because you're only going round once, you ain't coming back, and it's not a dress rehearsal.
Mm-hmm.
There's no like, oh, once you get up there, it's like, you get a second chance. You can go back, have a go at it again. It didn't work out the last time, but I tell you what, have a go at life again. No, that's not happening.
That doesn't happen.
Once you're gone, once this body goes, it's bye-bye. Au revoir, arrivederci, see you later. It's not see you later, it's I'm off.
Yeah. So, and I think that adopting philosophies like we're speaking about this morning and implementing that continuous improvement is really important. Did you have any strategies in terms of how you actually implemented a continual improvement plan for yourself, Jim, in terms of, right, okay, and I've put in here that you get obviously commonly used models that people follow, and one of them is the PDCA, it's plan, do, check, act, and things. Did you adopt anything like that to help you through your continual improvement?
In the beginning, I think I used to try and bite off more than I can chew.
Right.
Hopefully that
Which
makes
is
sense.
a common mistake, I think, with people.
Yeah, in other words, I wanted to do everything at once. And if you try to do everything at once, you'll never do anything at all. And eventually I got to the stage of, okay, I learned, and Frank Dick, the famous coach, coached the England rugby team and that, and also coached a lot of Olympians. Frank Dick, I read his book, and he says, no. He says, what you should be doing is you should just pick 3 things to concentrate on. No more, just 3 things you need to concentrate on. In other words, read for 20 minutes a day, go out for a walk, for 5K or a run, and then drink a pint of cold pressed juice every single day as well. So it was all about my mind, my body, and my health.
Yeah.
So these are the 3 things that you concentrate on. Once you get into this habit and you stack it as a habit is almost just like, look at Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Yeah. Arnold goes, when they go, why do you, how do you get the discipline to pump iron every single day? And Arnold goes, what do you mean the discipline? It's just like breathing.
Yeah, he's made it a habit.
There's no discipline to it. It's just that's what I do. That's who I am. It's just part of me. And when people say to me, oh, you need to slow down, it's like, you just work continuously. It's like, work. It's like, it's no work. That's just who I am.
It's what you do.
It's just what I do. I don't see it as work at all. So, but it's not happened overnight. It's just happened because you develop a habit, and it sticks with you.
Stacking. Yeah.
And it becomes like breathing. I mean, let's be honest. We've all got the habit of breathing.
Yeah.
And yet, you don't tell yourself to breathe, do you?
No.
There's something in your unconscious mind that goes, oh, keep breathing, in and out, just keep doing that. And then there's something else that says, oh, keep your heart beating, And effectively, that's what you're doing when you're adopting these new habits.
Yeah.
It's just like you should do it. It's not a chore. It's not a task. It's not anything. You just do it. I know a friend, actually, I see him every single morning, and he basically walks up to Buckhaven, and he walks all the way around Leiden, and he goes away back home every single day.
Do you know, the word habit and what habits are sometimes have, a lot of people may have them associated with bad and things that aren't good for you, obviously, like
Yeah.
smoking and drinking and all these kind of, like bad habits. But habits are a really, really good thing if they're obviously if they're beneficial to you, and you're going to use them to progress your own self.
So Sam's jumped on my TikTok and says, run, eat, and work. And he asked me how old I am. I'm 56, going on 57 this year.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find work harder when you're older? No, because it's not work. It's just what I do. And plus the fact is, I have attuned my body to a point where I'm now very efficient in what I'm doing and how I do it. But I'm very healthy, I would imagine, because I don't drink,
Yeah.
I don't smoke, I'm a vegan, so I'm plant-based completely because I don't have, and I introduced very few toxins into my system, because the toxins into my system, this is how geeky I get with this, actually takes away the time that your system has to process fighting off the toxins that you're ingesting. That's preservatives, additives, processed foods.
Yeah.
It's not got enough time to then heal your body elsewhere, because you've only got a certain amount of, antibodies and stuff like that, fighting on behalf of getting rid of the toxins. That's why when you have certain foods, you stink, because it's getting rid of all the crap. That's why you stink of. That's why even though you have a bath and you've been smoking cigars, or you've been drinking heavily the day before, you're still stinking of it, because it's the toxins are pouring out of your pores, because your skin's the biggest lymph node in your body, and it's getting rid of all the toxins that way, and it's sweating out as well. That's why that happens. So could you imagine when your body is so worked up with having to fight this? It's got no time to fight things like cancer. It's got no time to fight things like Parkinson's. It's got, on the onset of Parkinson's, it's got no time to fix your brain. It's got no time to fix your arteries. It's got no time to fix your heart. Your body can't repair itself because it's too busy fighting all the crap that you're putting into it. And all the things like the drink. I mean, drinking a pint of beer, I mean, I love non-alcoholic Guinness, and I justify it in the fact that Guinness has obviously got hops in it, which is really good for you. But there's no doubt about it, you're drinking chemicals. It just so happens the chemicals taste nice. And this is why I said to my son the other day, he says he eats a lot of sweets and sugars. And I says, look, something really good like sugar is nice and everything's nice in moderation.
Everything in moderation,
and is okay for you. But everything in excess becomes a poison. And that even means things like sugar. That means things like too much meat, too much of anything. Too much of anything can be quite bad for you. Look at paracetamol. Paracetamol, 2 paracetamol sorts out your headache. Take 8 of them, you're dead. Everything in moderation works.
And also,
excess doesn't.
People, I mean, a lot of get fit things that now refer to drinking at least 2 litres of water a day, blah, blah, blah. And people can overdo it. Too much water, you end up with sore heads and migraines and things. You could overdo it with water. And water's, it's the lifeblood of everything, really.
Well, look at a classic example. Somebody said chocolate. Look at chocolate. Everybody loves chocolate. But you've heard the cases where people have actually eaten themselves to death with chocolate. And they've killed themselves with chocolate. Because everything in excess, it becomes a poison. So this is why if you keep saying something all the time, and not having a healthy diet in terms of what you're doing, you end up becoming ill for that reason. This is why if you work continuously, look, excess, if you continually work and you don't rest, then your body becomes ill. If you continually run, you continually do anything to the excess, your body is damaged as a result of it. So this is why ultra runners, I mean, I did it myself. I was running 40 miles a week and I ended up damaging my body completely because I thought, oh, I'll be mega healthy and I'll cross train. I'll go on a bike I'll go on swimming and I'll go on running as well, but I was still running 40 miles a week on the pavement. And then I was training 11 times a week, and I was going to kendo twice included as well, hitting people with big sticks, samurai. But that takes its toll on your body. Your body has to rest at some point in time and switch off in order to regenerate and reinvigorate. And if it doesn't, this all comes back to Kaizen. How to be efficient. See that? How this is all about efficient in your body. So it's a continuous improvement in your body, but it's not going to the excess of damaging yourself. So body, mind, work, individual, teams, this applies to everything. So I didn't, to answer your question in my long about way to get round about, I didn't actually know of any models to follow, but people actually develop these models in order to sell courses. You know that. You know, that's why it's probably called the PDCA, which is the Plan, Do, Check and Act, which is probably somebody's developed some sort of course and said, this is what we need to do. It's like, wait a minute, this is common sense. You've just packaged it up into a sellable course. So this is why you can actually get these sort of things, all this information from books. Books is a real entry level into rather than actually buying a course or listening to podcasts. You know, podcasts is a really efficient thing, very, very efficient.
I'll you do something else while you're doing it,
while I'm in the bath.
Yeah.
So while I'm in the bath, while I'm getting shaved in the morning, I'm listening to a podcast that's on the television. You know, I'm watching Diary of a CEO. I'm listening to it when I'm getting changed in the bedroom as well at the same time, going back and forward. And I'm also drinking a pint of cold pressed juice at the same time.
So this is then brings us on nicely to what I was going to talk about next, and that's you creating habits and stacking them together, which is habit stacking. So let's obviously talk about habits and how yourself, Jim, obviously over the years have incorporated habits and habit stacking to benefit you, and just really like look at the different areas of yourself. And I've put in things here like self-awareness and being humble, and do you know what I mean? Things that you need to obviously think about when you're creating habits and thinking about not just your individual self, but how it affects maybe your business or the people around you. And
self-awareness is obviously knowing your tolerance levels. So that's why over the years, I mean, there's no doubt about it. Most people, well, I've watched my story and heard my story from before, realised that what I used to do is when I worked, full time in employment and as a financial controller and financial director in industry, I literally used to just come straight home. I would eat something when I was going out with my overalls on and all my painting gear and all my toolkit as well in my car to go and work on my houses. And I would literally be working on my houses sometimes till about 3 o'clock in the morning. And then at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'd fall asleep on the carpet in the house or maybe the bare floorboards. I would just put my head down for about 3 hours till about 6 o'clock. I'd wake up, I'd come back to the house, my own house, and then I would get a shower, I'd have my breakfast and I'd go straight to work. And I used to do that quite a lot. And I used to do that at the weekends as well. I literally burnt the candle at both ends.
I was just going to say, did you not get to the candle left? Yeah, I was because you get to the point doing that where you were really burning it at both ends.
This is where it's self-aware. It's like I do not have an off button. Literally, I do not have an off button. It's like the Brownlee brothers. You know when the person's running to the end of the marathon and they're all over the place, like, oh my god, and they're just going, they're still going, and it's like, what the hell is keeping this guy going? How are they managing to keep going? I would have fallen down and passed out by now. But the reality is, that's me. That's the I will literally go until I drop and die. I don't really care. I don't really care about myself. Honestly, Richard, I really have no bother about myself because I just keep pushing myself all the time to a point where it almost becomes crisis. And that's the difficulty. So I have to be self-aware of myself now. I've learned to be that. That's probably my later years now. In my later years, and while I've had to be self-aware about the fact that this is why I stopped drinking 7 years ago, because I realised it's like if I keep drinking, I'm going to put myself in an early grave. And the fact is, I'm never going to be able to be productive as I want to be, and I know the goals that I want and what I want to achieve, and there's no way. And the drink is getting in the road of that. So it was never, to me, a problem. I love to go out and have a party like everybody else and get absolutely rat-arsed and all the rest of it and have a great weekend, talk about it on Monday and go, flipping heck, that was a brilliant weekend.
It does prohibit you from excelling in certain areas.
Of course it did.
Yeah.
And as soon as you get older, it gets worse because the hangovers get longer and you're less productive as a result. So I realised that if I want to achieve my dreams, my obstacle in the way is the alcohol. And so there's no way I'm going to let that get in the way. I wanted to be a triathlete. And every time I got up on a Saturday morning, I could not physically get up because we'd been out on a Friday night on the lash.
Mm-hmm.
And I just hated the fact that I looked out the window and I saw these beautiful blue skies and these clear roads with no roads, because everybody else is hungover, by the way, so they're not in their cars. And first thing in the morning, and the sun was shining and it was beautiful. And it's like, and I'm like, oh, I've just not got it. I've not got it.
And by the time
it got 12 o'clock and you were in some state of mind to be able to do that, the clouds had come over and everybody was on the road in their cars. So for me, it was an overriding thing about what did I want more, and I wanted more of what I wanted to achieve, and I was never going to achieve that with the booze.
Yeah.
So I'm afraid my mistress had to go, because effectively that's what I had her for.
Yeah.
She was great. I had her.
Do you know, that's a really good example.
Richard, she saw me through some fantastic times, I'll tell you, and some really challenging times.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I had to let her go. You
For
know,
the long
it's
run,
like, and it was the same with things like the cigars. It was the same with things like the eating all the meat and the dairy and all the rest of it. I now, by the research and all the proof and all the knowledge and expertise and all the everything that's on, nobody in the dairy industry wants to tell you it's bad for you.
I know.
Nobody in the meat industry wants to tell you what goes into meat and it's probably bad for you, because this is why we're getting a wee touch every single time, all the hormones that go in to plump people up. That's what's happening. Yeah. You don't realize that's what's happening because all the cattle's getting that to make the cattle bigger, to make bigger fish, to make bigger everything, so you can actually get more produce out of it and more cuts of meat out of it. And it just so happens we're eating that, but we're ingesting that as well on a smaller, minute scale. So it's not really traceable in terms of the tolerance of the government's tolerances for the meat industry. Therefore, we're getting it every single day. And as far as I'm concerned, it's like putting arsenic in your tea every single day. At some point in time, you'll die of poisoning.
Yeah.
And that's how I see it. So this is just a personal opinion for me. This is only my thought process.
Yeah,
No one needs to believe a word I'm saying. It's only my opinion. Funny, Keith Cunningham said that to me. I always laugh at that. Jim, you don't need to believe me. It's just my opinion. But Keith, you're worth about 500 million. I think I maybe need to take something on board about what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's, like you say, it's what you follow and what you believe, and you don't need to, I mean, you're not obviously pushing that on anybody else. But what I took from that there is, Jim, obviously you went through a whole process, like you say, with alcohol and things, and become aware that was prohibiting you from moving forward. And that could be difficult. And I quite believe it probably is. And a lot of other people have things in their life that becoming aware of and accepting that they need to change can be quite a difficult thing. So that's a whole process in itself.
This is why I was an addicted gambler when I was younger in my teenage years, because I needed something to distract me, because I was hyper all the time and I didn't have any direction about where I was going, what I was doing. I had no idea where I was going. The person I was, I wasn't introduced to anything. I was literally had no knowledge and expertise about anything, but I'd felt so frustrated in all my life. We're going to talk about this at the PIN meeting, actually. On Thursday night in Edinburgh, at Property Investors Network. But I'm going to mention about where I was at that time in my teenage years. It wasn't great for me. Imagine just being so confused that you didn't know what you were doing, but having no mentor or anything like that to help you through that process. And what do? You become addicted to things in order to distract you.
Yeah.
Why do you think so many people are addicted to Facebook right now? And Instagram? And TikTok? The TikTok people.
Well, we're on all those platforms right now, but
we're on all these platforms. Why do you think you're so addicted to them? I got a message from someone today and says, "Look, my messages keep popping up," and I went, "Just switch them off, but I might need them." Elaine was like run out of data at the weekend because she's in Turkey, and she's like on the phone to me going, "I've run out of data," and I'm like, "Who cares?" If somebody said I've run out of data and my phone switched off, I'd be going, "You're beauty." I actually can switch off for a change. It's like when you go up Tukbal, when you went up Jebel Tukbal in Morocco in March. It was like my phone, I couldn't get signals at certain places, and I thought, this is brilliant. This is absolutely great. You're switched off from the world. Superb. And then you think, you can come back saying, well, you've got to have a healthy relationship with it. Yeah. You've got to understand what it is. You've got to understand what's happening to you when you have this. When you're addicted, when you're addicted to Facebook, because every time your phone buzzes, or you're addicted to your phone, every time it buzzes, or you even get palpitations if you can't find your phone, you've got a problem. You just won't admit it.
Mm-hmm. And there'll be a lot of people like
this is like anything in life, Richard. You've got a problem in anything in life when you reach for an addiction, and most people use alcohol as their addiction, or gambling as their addiction, or smoking as their addiction, or vaping as their addiction, to take them away from the everyday monotonous thing about what they're doing. Yeah. It's soul destroying to go into your work from 9 till 5, Monday to Friday, and do the same thing every single day. Why do you think people live for the weekend? There's no variety. Imagine just pushing widgets every single day and that's all you do. This is why people create chaos in their life in order to have some excitement, even though it's bad for them.
Yeah.
That's where addiction comes from. So it's being self-aware is the most important thing. And this is why Kaizen, this process, actually helps you do that.
Yeah.
It's also staying humble. Yeah, I mean, I don't know it all.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody really does. And that's the whole where the whole learning thing comes from.
I was in, I went out yesterday and I've got to say, I appear on Facebook a lot, and, there's people standing next to me and I'm asking them questions about what we're doing, how we're getting it and all the rest of it. And they're going, it's like meeting a famous person. I'm like, what? It's just me. It's like, I'm just normal. If you cut me, I bleed.
Cut me, yeah.
It's like, but we have this mentality in our life, how we perceive things.
I'm just going to say,
so it's staying humble. It's accepting the fact, like, this is just me. I'm dog's body like everybody else, and I think most people actually understand that about me. It's like, I don't take myself too seriously. There's times where I have a good laugh about it. I really do. You know that. You know that. It's like, I'm the best in the world. And it's like, I know. It's like, I'm just having a real good laugh with that. Because some people that don't know me will go, what a big-headed shite. And it's like, I hate that person. And it's like, you don't even know me. You've never even walked in my shoes for a month or two. You've never understood who I am. So how on earth could you come to that conclusion?
I think that says a lot more about other people than it does the person.
So it is, but I will never know everything, and I still learn from other people as well today. Kessa Selina, Freedom Financial, he's fantastic when it comes to mortgage broking for buy-to-let. That's his specialist area.
Yeah, he's really good.
Who do you think I'm going to learn from? Who do you think I'm going to call? And it's no Ghostbusters.
Yeah, always learning. This is what we're doing right now. This is what the show's all about. This is what the creation show is about.
This is a process. This is learning back and forward.
Yeah.
So it's all these different areas. Look at Linda Martin. Linda Martin is, if I were ever going to get into property refurbishment, I'd be going on her course. Yeah. Definitely. In a nutshell, I would be on that course like a flash. I'd be signing up to it because I would want to learn from a person that can knock it out of the park every single time on a refurbishment.
And she's been there, she's done it, she's learned all the mistakes.
I see everybody else's refurbishment, but they never come close to what Linda Martin does and what she's capable of. And that's why that is the go-to person for me for that. So I know all the go-to people over the years because I've been learning from them as well at the same time. They don't know I'm learning from them, but every blog and vlog they put out, I get to see that. That's the whole point. So I'm not the oracle and the see-all and know-all and all the rest of it, and I understand that completely. But remember, it's no sign of weakness because you do that. No. It's just all that is. And then this comes back to always be learning. Don't assume that you know everything about a subject.
No.
The classic is you see a lot of the furus come on, and they do mention some things now and again. You think, well, that's actually quite a valid point. But they've still not got a pot to piss in. So they've still not got two halfpennies stood up together. they've still not got any wealth. So really they can't teach you, but they've picked that information up from another mentor who's been far more successful. So it's carried on from someone else. So you do get the sound bites now and again. You think, oh, that's really good. That's absolutely excellent. The knowledge and expertise I've acquired over the years has not been made up by me. It's been, I'm a product of everybody else and combined learning. I'm a product of all the books I've read. That's what you've got. This is why AI is so frightening, by the way, because as one of us learns, every single one of us learns in AI. How exponentially could you do? This is like the Borg on Star Trek, by the way. So if you know what the Borg is, I will assimilate you. That's what AI is.
Yeah.
Basically, once one learns how to do it, it tells every other thing in AI the same thing. This is what I learned and how to do it. Imagine if humans were like that, where we would be. And this is what we try to do by running courses and learning and reading books and everything, when AI just ports it into somebody's brain straight away. Hardwired. A USB. I'm in a USB port right here in your head. You just plug that in and plug it into somebody else's head and go, job done. Information downloaded. You've learned. That's what AI is.
Yeah.
So always be learning, always keep digging, always keep reading, always keep researching, always keep experimenting. Obviously, make sure you do a bit of wisdom first. Don't experiment too much because it could cost you a fortune. It's gaining greater knowledge in the topic you want to specialize in and recognize and still how to learn it. And the next one is, it's a bit difficult for me to embrace this.
This one for me.
Asking for feedback.
Yeah, and I think, and as a habit as well, it's a habit of the higher self-awareness thing, and asking for feedback and being able to take the feedback and maybe constructively, as a constructive criticism, they say. Jim, you and I do this on a weekly basis. Obviously, we do our weekly meetings, and sometimes I struggle with the feedback. And I said this to you the other day.
And we'll do it tomorrow as well in the morning.
Yeah.
We'll come on and I would just laugh. It's like, ooh, and I could see it. I could see it straight away. And you know why I laugh? I don't laugh at you. I laugh with you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Because I've been it through myself. I know exactly what it's like to ask for feedback. It's like, you don't want to ask feedback. Nobody wants to be rejected.
Yeah. Or picked up.
That's the problem with feedback.
Yeah. But I think it's really important to evaluate yourself and have somebody else evaluate what you're doing if they specialize in something as well, or they're better to guide you. Like you say, you're really good at processes and how things work, and that's we talk about that every week. And I'm of course going to take advice from you on processes and how to make things more efficient in the day-to-day running of business and things as well. But also take the constructive criticism of maybe something that I've been doing.
I don't really buy into the constructive criticism thing. I think, there's a better way to do it, so I'll just tell you.
Yeah.
Or maybe no, do it like that, just do it like this. So I don't like the word constructive criticism because it implies it's actually good for you. It's not. Nobody likes to be criticised. Everybody hates it. But what I'd say every single time is, I remember Michael Jackson saying to everybody when he says that on stage, you see it and This Is It, he goes to his band and everything. Goes when he says something that's criticism. He goes to his band. Look, feel the love. It's like, and his band goes, yeah, okay then, okay, and they all have a smile on their face at the end of it. So I could understand that, and for me as well, it's like I don't take it very well. But what we do is that's why I sign up to the ESTAs.
Yeah.
So I deliberately sign up to the ESTAs, which is the Estate Agent Awards. But I don't sign up to win the award. I sign up for the system that they've got for the feedback from the customers. Because we ask our customers at the end of the journey to rate us based on the experience in 5 different key areas of 5 stars. And then we ask them to put in a comment about what they felt, and also if they felt that somebody stood out head and shoulders above anyone else, and for what reason. The reason that we do that is because it's valuable, independent feedback that we think is relevant, and we rate the ESTAs right up there as one of the highest awards in a state agency because it's the only award voted for by your customers.
Yeah, and to get that feedback,
you live and die by that. So this is why feedback is so important in terms of what you're doing, and you've just got to take it on the chin. Now and again, you'll get the Google reviews, and you'll have somebody come on and have a real good moan at you.
But then you use that to learn from and move forward.
But you've got to understand as well, there's people that just want to see the world burn. And they're no bothered. They just don't want to accept what you're trying to tell them. They just want to have their own version of events. And that's their choice. It's just like, on you go, fill your boots. It's not going to make any difference to me. I'm just going to continue to move on. And that's the end of it. There's only, for me personally, 200, 300 properties a year we sell. We only need 200 to 300 people to actually buy into what we do, and I'm happy dealing with these people. I do not want to sell every single house in Fife. I do not want 6,000 house sales in Fife every year. I couldn't care less. I want to deal with the people who want to deal with me, and we want to do business together and want me to get the result thereafter. That's why I do what I do. Otherwise, I'd be sitting on a beach in Spain drinking pina coladas.
Yeah.
Alcohol-free ones, by the way.
Yeah, but I think asking for that feedback and taking that feedback on board and combining it with, like we say, your own self-awareness and things, it really will push you forward and help you really discover a much greater insight into your own abilities and what you can achieve.
This goes into Kaizen.
Yeah.
So the next one, the final one for me, is probably the one I would say is question everything.
You taught me this as well.
I used to rub my teachers up the wrong way all the time. It used to drive them crazy. It's like you ask questions all the time. You ask questions all the time. You ask questions all the time, and it's like most people just as parents and that want their children to be quiet because they can't take the constant questioning. But you should embrace that the questioning as actually quite positive, and the fact that your child is actually learning at quite a fast rate if they're actually questioning. Now they're not questioning it because they want to be a wee bampo. They're questioning it because they want to know, and that's what you have to ascertain. You question because you want to know. And I as you said, Richard, I taught you that, and I teach everybody that every single time. Don't just accept the answer you're given. Go and ask someone else.
Yes.
That comes back to recently when we had the £74,000 for the cost, the additional dwelling. It's not the additional dwelling supplement. There's another one, the multiple dwellings relief.
And the multiple dwellings relief.
It's going to cost you £78,000. That was it. It's going to cost you £78,000 in tax to buy that portfolio and extra income, extra tax revenue. And I was like, "Are you sure?" And they went, "Yeah, it is." And I just went to another solicitor and I said, multiple dwellings relief, what it is in this portfolio. And they went, "No, it's £20,000.
And you've got it down to 20 grand.
It's classed as a commercial transaction." And then I subsequently went back to the other person and went, "Is this no classed as a commercial transaction?" And they went, "Oh, you're right, I was wrong." Oh my God.
And if you had just listened and went with that
I would have paid £54,000 more in tax. It was needed. Just like that, 54 grand lost. To me, that's 10 kitchens in a house, or 10 or 11 kitchens that somebody could have had. 10 or 11 properties could have had refurbs, kitchens and bathrooms. 10 or 11 people could have had a refurb on the kitchens or bathrooms.
But it pays off so much to be inquisitive and to question things. And our property management team, somebody's like, "Well, Jim's asking this," and I'm like, "Jim will always ask you questions because he wants to." It's not trying to be difficult, like you say. People may think it's just trying to establish how you have got to this point with motivation, or if it's work, or.
As soon as somebody gets a question, most people go,
"Yeah."
They close up. Brick wall, out with the trowel, face it off, brick wall built.
Yeah.
I'm not giving you an answer. Why you need to know that question? Arms folded, legs folded, legs crossed, all the rest of it, completely defensive. And it's like, well, I'm just want to know for my knowledge, that's all. I'm not challenging you. I just want to know how you came to that assumption or how you got to that number. That's all I'm wanting to know.
Yeah. So
I'm not putting you on the spot. And there's often a time where we're sitting in meetings and you'll get a defensive answer and go, whoa.
Yeah.
It's not a witch hunt. I'm just asking you to tell me how you got to that answer. That's all I'm asking you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I never knew it was that. Okay. Well, there you go then. Stop being defensive.
Yeah, that's a really common thing.
This is because we are taught as young children, no. Don't do that. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do this. Shut up. Stay in the corner. Be quiet. Listen to your elders. Don't say this. Don't say that. And we're continually bombarded with that since birth. And we're we're told, put your hand up in class first,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll decide if we ask you. This is how our society works on these
And that gets ingrained in
rules. To hell with the rules. If you want an answer to something, go and ask the question.
Yeah.
If you don't get the answer you want, or nobody wants to answer the question, don't do business with them. Forget it. Don't do business with them. I've got it right now where somebody's disputing a job that they did for me, and they're going, well, what are you wanting us to do to rectify it? And I think I made that pretty obvious when I sent all the photographs and sent you the manufacturer spec and said, that's exactly how I want it. Exactly what it's like on the manufacturer website and done to the manufacturer specification. I don't need to come on site and tell you how to do this, or I'll need to do the job for you if that's the case.
Yeah. But I think the freedom to ask a question, people are quite reluctant to do that because, like you say, Jim, they've been programmed to question themselves before they even ask a question, which is ridiculous when you think about it. And you say that out loud.
I remember, now you've stimulated my conversation there. I remember getting this from a really, a person I actually looked up to, years and years ago when I was a teenager. And I remember getting it from them about when I was taking one of my first tenants. And I said to one of my first tenants was, so what is your financial background? Because I was, because there was no referencing at that time. There was no system like HomeLet and stuff like that. I was asking all these questions. So what are you earning? What is your current position? Where are you right now? I need a reference from your existing landlord. And I remember this guy I respected, and he was in that same industry, said to me, you can't ask questions like that. That's probing into people's personal life. And I went, if I'm going to give them a £70,000 house for the deposit of 500 quid, you're damn right I'm going to be asking them the questions. Because I'm not giving anybody a £50,000, £70,000 house for 500 quid a deposit.
I still get that.
They're right.
I still get that now. People are like, well, why are you asking me all this?
And why are you asking me all this? And it's like, click, you'll not be getting the house then, eh?
Yeah, you're not prepared to dive.
I'm entitled to that house. No, you're no, because it's my house and it's my rules. And if you want to get it, these are the hoops you've got to jump through, because this is normal process of applying for a house. What do you think? Nobody does this. Nobody questions a bank. Nobody goes to a bank for their mortgage and goes, that's no fair. You shouldn't be questioning me how much income I'm earning to get your mortgage. Everybody accepts that from a bank. But yet when it comes to a private landlord, they go, oh, no, I shouldn't be able to tell you this information. You're damn right you should.
Yeah.
This is just like the bank. I'm giving you a £70,000 house and you're looking after it. So I want to make sure you can look after it and can afford to have it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's all comes back to
a £70,000 house is a parking space down in England. That's probably out, Tommy. You're probably right, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, that just shows the importance of asking questions and asking the right people the right questions, and questioning why something is the way it is, or how it could be better, or who can you ask for the right feedback. Obviously, if you're not getting what you need, like you say, Jim, there's certain people and certain expertise that you refer back to because they excel in that field, and that's where you go and ask them and get their feedback. So it's so important to do that. And you have taught me the importance of asking questions over the years.
Who can ask for feedback about what went wrong? What can I do next time? I even ask that as well sometimes. The one thing I ask, if I don't, on the odd occasion, somebody goes with another agent, it's like if there's one single thing that would have made a fundamental difference in your mind to come in with me to list your property, what would it have been?
What would I get? What could I do?
And the majority of occasions, the majority of occasions, which is very, very rare, most people say it's because your cost.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, and then my response to that is, I'm sorry, I've actually lost you money by going with another agent, because I failed to demonstrate to you how the fact that I get significantly more than another agent gets, because I've got a huge amount of comparables, and I have showed them, but they've obviously not listened and engrossed in it, and they get fixated on the fact that how much can I save, not how much can I make. How much can I make is thousands more than how much you can save in your fee. That's why you pick an estate agent who knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
So also the other things as well you've got to think about is, sometimes, why am I feeling this way? What is actually affecting me? Why on automatic response do I want to reach for a drink? Why do I want to go out and have a cigarette at this point in time? Because the cigarette is the cure, but the prevention is what you should have acted on.
Yeah.
So in other words, the excessive drinking, the excessive smoking, the excessive gambling, all these different things, they're all, this is all you trying to cure what the problem is. What you should be addressing is how do I prevent it in the first place? So the cure is not what you're taking, it's what is happening in the beginning. Most people, here's a classic example. When somebody's messed up in the head, people usually say, this is addicts, for example, drug addicts, and people are on the street and stuff like that. Now, this is really important. People listen to this. When you see somebody like that is falling on hard times and they're homeless and they're a drug addict, you should not be saying what is wrong with you. You should be saying what's happened to you. Because it's not a criticism of what's wrong with them. There's not something wrong with them. Something's happened to them in their life. It's led them to this path.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to fix that, it's not, let's try and fix what's wrong. Let's try and resolve
Let's look at what happened
to lead you down this direction in the first place. For most addicts in life, for anything, it usually comes down to lack of human connection.
Mm-hmm.
It's the problem.
Yeah.
You usually typically find they're socially isolated in some shape or form, or they've isolated themselves, and it's the human connection that they lack. It gets them down the path of addiction, because the addiction is to get them to forget about the fact that they're not happy. This is why the classic example, remember the advert on the television, you might not remember this, where the guy sat there actually spaced out his head on drugs while the whole world flew about him in the party.
I don't mind that.
And then, he took, this was an anti-drugs campaign, when he sat on the couch and he had taken the drug, he had inhaled it, he had sat on the couch, and the rest of the party just sped around him, speeded up.
Yeah. And blood.
And then when he woke up after it, everyone was going, that was fantastic, wasn't it? And he went, I suppose it was. And that's what happened to most people in life. This is why we become addicted to things.
Mm-hmm.
Because of that. This is why we go out and get rat-arsed. This is why we go out and because we can't cope with what's currently happening right now, or we don't have the coping mechanisms to do that. We then turn to drink, we then turn to gambling, we then turn to alcohol, we then turn to smoking, we then turn to, anything. It becomes addictive behavior in order to distract us from dealing with the real issue at hand. It is what has happened to you to lead you down this path, because that is painful for most people. That for me happened in my early years, when I was 9 or 10 years old with abuse. That led me to have a really volatile teenage years for that reason.
I think, like you've pointed out there, and I think it's such a much better way to approach that when somebody's in that kind of situation, that not to look at it as what's wrong with you.
We're digressing off of this, but this is really important to actually say this.
Mm-hmm.
My teenage years could have been a hell of a lot simpler if I'd actually dealt with what happened.
And spoke about what had happened and things, and dealt with what had happened. Then you maybe would have been in a better position mentally and things.
It was the things that I thought understood about what happened to me that led me off the path, because I didn't realize, and it was only later on I thought, holy shit, if I'd known in the beginning that this was wrong, and this wasn't associated with this type of person,
just dealt with it differently.
This was an individual incident. It doesn't happen all the time. I would have been a completely different person in my teenage years.
Mm-hmm.
But that ship sailed now. So hopefully, what happens with other people is, we're talking about this, and we've talked about this on the wealth creation show anyway, in previous episodes of Diary of a Property Investor, how I made my first million, and where that all came from. That's an important thing to me. But then again, this comes back to, this is all about Kaizen.
Yeah.
This is all about making things more efficient. This is all about dealing with all the things in your past in order to get your future right, in order to pave the way for the future. Because all these things in the past that you've got on your back, it's like you're carrying them about everywhere. They're just a weight on your back every single time. Think about this, like a big backpack, all that crap on your back that you've just never dealt with. And all you're doing is, it's so painful, you're just turning to addictions and alcohol and all the rest of it to take your mind off it, but it's no going away. And you're no running away from it. Changing your job, changing your house, changing your relationship is a good one. That's what happens most of the time. People break up, and it's not because of the two of them. It's because they don't understand each other's background and what's happened in their lives. They don't actually see what's happened in their lives. Where people in relationships look at what's wrong with you, it's no, what's happened to you. Where's this come from? And it's the conflict about the difficulty and how they have in relationships that they butt heads, because it's difficult for them to accept the fact that maybe I was abused and I just don't want to tell my partner. That's the difficulty that happens with that. We're getting off the beaten track, but
I think it all does tie back into continual improvement, Jim, and how you are within your own mindset and where you are with creating positive habits and being self-aware, and do you know what I mean? It all does all tie in, and adopting this philosophy, the Kaizen philosophy, is such an important thing to have implemented into you as a person and individually, as in your personal life and your professional life, in order for you to be successful and succeed. And that's what we're trying to teach people on the Wealth Creation Show.
So why do you think the title is Continuous Improvement Will Set You Free? Will set you free. This will set you free. You do this. You do what we're saying. You deal with what's happened to you, and your future will be free.
Yeah.
You'll live a lot better life, and the people you engage with and you understand will set you free as well. I had a fantastic thing in my book. I love my book. You know my book. And read all my stuff and all the rest of it. This is actually, I'll finish off on this one actually. This is actually quite a good one. I love these things. Elaine had to learn, this was actually quite a good one. Elaine had to learn that every time I came home and I'm not talking, that it doesn't mean I don't like her. And that's the same when I walk into the office sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that I'm mad at anybody. It doesn't mean every time I flip out, I freak out, or I get weird, or I act strange, it's not about you. You don't need to fix me. You don't need to fix anything. You don't need to change anything or anything like that. Elaine doesn't need to do that. You don't need to fix me. It's not your job to fix me. She's understood that. It's not my job to fix her. It's my job to love her. Even when she's broken. Because if you can love someone when they're broken, and I can love her when she's broken, maybe I can love me when I'm broken. If I can't love you, Elaine, when you're flawed, then I really can't learn to love myself either when I'm flawed. And for me, that's probably the most prominent part of what I learned so far in my journey.
Yeah.
If you can fix you, that's the person you need to work on. And this what comes back to Kaizen.
Yeah.
And that's me.
Good. That was a good way to end. That's just a perfect example of how Kaizen can be implemented into your life.
Absolutely.
And help you progress. So thanks for that, Jim, and thanks for sharing. Thanks for everyone for joining in the comments and watching us today. Jim, I think you've got a few things on TikTok you may be able to go through, but for us today, that is the end of the show,
Yep.
and we'll see you next week again, 12:30 Monday for the Wealth Creation Show.
Bye. We'll catch the people on TikTok right now and go through a couple of questions. Bye-bye for now, folks.
Guy, thanks.